Time to say hello to our correspondent in Los Angeles. Her name is Natalie Sady, and she joins us via Zoom. Natalie, it's been another remarkable week of stories out of the United States. Where do you want to start this week?
We are going to start with Breonna Taylor. She is a young woman who was killed back in March by Louisville police officers. She was killed after a botched raid, which was related to a drug investigation. What happened was a no-knock warrant was issued, and basically that means that police don't have to announce their arrival. They can just enter and search the home at will, and they can enter with force. Now, just before the raid was to take place, that was changed to knock and announce, and so that means the officers had to identify themselves before entering the property. What actually took place that night is hotly disputed, and when officers entered the house, Breonna Taylor's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, fired a single shot, which did hit a police officer in the leg. And in response to that single shot, at least 20 rounds were fired. Miss Taylor, who was unarmed, was hit at least 8 times, and she died in the hallway of the home. She wasn't given any medical attention for at least 20 minutes and died on scene. After the raid was completed, there were no drugs found on the property. After the raid, it was discovered that there was no body cam footage of the raid, and Mr. Walker was charged that night with attempted murder of a police officer, but those charges were dismissed in May. City officials have now banned no-knock warrants. That happened in June, and one officer has been fired. He was fired on June 23rd. The other 2 officers involved were placed on administrative leave. Now, some body cam footage has been released of that night. It's a very short clip, and what it shows is one of the police officers involved in the incident re-entering the property, having a discussion about shell casings, and this is a clear violation of policy that he would be back on scene. The other thing that is meant to happen after there's been an incident like this is that all officers involved are meant to be separated so that they can be questioned. And this shows that that clearly didn't happen that night. So there's just questions around what actually happened in the aftermath of that evening. Now, Louisville officials have agreed to pay out $12 million as a settlement for a wrongful death lawsuit. And just this month, Attorney General Daniel Cameron convened a grand jury to review Taylor's case. Now, there's been calls from celebrities, the general public, sports stars, everybody, for charges to be laid in regard to this case. And when we had the riots earlier this year, Breonna's name was one that was yelled and shouted and screamed over and over and over again because there has been no justice for her. Now, the grand jury indicted former Louisville police officer Brett Hankinson for wanton endangerment for his actions during the raid. He fired into a glass sliding door covered with blinds and no line of sight, and those bullets ricocheted into many different apartments. So it's been noted that he showed an extreme indifference to the value of human life. But no other charges were laid against the other officers, and so no one has been charged with causing Breonna's death. Now, police are saying that they did identify themselves before entering the apartment, but Mr. Walker has said that he and Ms. Taylor heard aggressive banging and asked who it was, and they did not hear an announcement. This is significant because if they did not announce themselves, Mr. Walker had every right to defend himself and his property with his gun, which was licensed. There is a 911 call which was released in May, and Mr. Walker told the dispatcher that someone had kicked in the door and shot his girlfriend, and we're going to throw to that right now.
911, Operator Harris, where is your emergency?
I don't know what happened. Somebody kicked in the door inside my girlfriend.
Okay, where are you located?
I'm at 3003 Springfield Drive, apartment 4.
3003 Springfield Drive, apartment number 4?
Yes. Oh my God.
Okay, how old is your girlfriend?
She's She's for 26. Bree. Oh
You said 26. Where was she shot at?
I don't know. She's on the grill right now. I don't know.
Okay.
Mama.
You said she's 26. Is she alert and able to talk to you?
No, she's not. Bree. God.
So there has obviously, as I've already said, been a huge public reaction to the fact that no charges have been laid. And after the announcement of the grand jury's finding earlier in the week, protests erupted around the country. At the protests, they're shouting, "Say her name," and that hashtag, "Say her name," is also trending on social media. In LA, we've had protesters run down by cars driving into the crowds. In Kentucky, 2 police officers were shot. Thankfully, they weren't life-threatening injuries that they received. And just a couple of days ago, a grand jury member filed a motion to unseal the transcripts and records of the proceedings so that the truth may prevail. The complaint accused the Attorney General of using grand jurors as a shield to deflect accountability and responsibility for the decision not to charge officers for Breonna's death. Now, Attorney General Cameron misleadingly told the public that the grand jury agreed with the decision not to indict officers for Breonna's death. But he has now admitted that he never recommended that the grand jury indict either of the 2 officers for shooting and killing Breonna, and that the officers were justified in their actions because they were fired at first. Cameron has said that he told the grand jury that the one eyewitness said that they did hear officers announce themselves before the raid, but we still don't have an answer as to whether he disclosed that there are 12 other eyewitnesses that say police did not announce themselves before entering the home. And as I've already stated, if they didn't announce themselves, Kenneth Walker was completely justified in firing his legally owned firearm. So this is something that needs to be looked into further. The Attorney General has said he will release the transcripts for transparency, but as yet they haven't been released. And I had a look online, and there is actually a petition on change.org, Justice for Breonna, and it is just shy of 11.5 million signatures. Look, so it's an incredibly powerful case.
The Black Lives Matter rallies and demonstrations have really spilled right across America, and rightly so. Some of the things that we've discovered and some of the things that you're telling us really need to be assessed, really need to be, as they say, examined in the cold, hard light of a court. And let's hope we can see not only decisions that come out that improve not only the lifestyle of a whole bundle of Americans, but also makes America a safer place for everybody, not just those that are living in the richer suburbs.
I think the main takeaway from this is George Floyd is a different case where this was a man being taken into custody. So there's debate raging as to whether not what happened to him, but the way he was handled was justified or not. Breonna Taylor was a woman in her own home who was guilty of nothing.
Yes, extraordinary.
And if we're not safe in our own home, when are we safe?
What other stories have you got for us? Are you going to go into the fallout following the much touted presidential debate between Joe Biden, the challenger, and the incumbent, Donald Trump, the President of the United States?
Absolutely. It was a spectacle to behold. We all knew it would be. The hardcore Democrats were really hoping that Biden would come out really strong and be able to, I think, show the difference between Donald Trump and his sort of oafish behavior and sort of be the voice of reason and be the mature adult in the room. And unfortunately, I don't think that really happened. They both came out. Donald Trump from the get-go was speaking over everybody, but very quickly Biden was doing the same thing. And there wasn't a whole lot of adult discussion. There wasn't a whole lot of policy being talked about. There were a lot of insults, and even Chris Wallace, who was the moderator, was being spoken over the top of. He raised his voice at one point. I don't think there was a clear winner from that debate.
I don't believe there's a win or lose in this situation. For me, from this perspective here, I think the rusted on voters, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, will see their champion as the winner or the one that deserves to get the brownie points. But clearly, I can't believe there were any points up there for assessment because there was nothing to assess. And as for Wallace, I was surprised. He's a seasoned moderator. I would have imagined that he would have asked for the microphones to be shut off and giving him a chance to clear the air and then get them to start again, but with a warning that if you talk over one another, I'll shut off your microphone. But clearly none of that happened, and as we saw, you rightly say it was quite a performance.
Chris, I mean, the problem is we don't know what the setup was in terms of being able to do that or how quickly they'd be able to. And I think like when disciplining a child, you don't want to make a threat that you can't follow through on, but there is talk that moving forward into the second debate, which will come up quite soon, that is an option that will happen, that they will mute the microphones if they don't observe the 2 minutes. But I think what the public really want is a real grown-up discussion so that they can see what their candidates are both going to do. And there was a very big belief that Biden would be that for the Democrats, and I don't think he's come through. And there are a lot of people saying there's nobody they want to vote for in this election.
The only problem is that they don't get a third option.
No, you've got the independents, but realistically, it's a two-party system over here. The independents really just sort of take votes away from one side or the other. The other thing that is clear is that there is not going to be a clear winner on the night of the election. There's also talk that it might take weeks or months for a clear winner to be decided. And there is a time limit, and I have to admit, I'm not sure of what it is, but if a winner isn't declared in a certain amount of time, then the acting Speaker of the House, who is Nancy Pelosi, becomes president.
Oh, dear.
So it's a year where anything could happen.
Do you know, Natalie, there was a boxing promoter, I don't remember his name at this moment, but he used to love creating mayhem and noise. And if he was the promoter of last night's debate, he would have said, we've got them right where we want them, and they'll be lining up in droves to watch debate number 2.
Well, so, a lot of people were tweeting and posting on social media, though, that they turned it off 15 minutes in. They just couldn't deal with the childishness that was happening. So,
you know what, for all those people that didn't watch, let me tell you, Australian television media certainly watched, and they replayed it over and over and over again. Even if we didn't want to know, we were told. That's the invasive quality or the invasive nature of the world that we live in. Natalie Sady, thank you for giving us that heads-up story about Breonna. It's a horrible case, and let's hope there is some justice. As you say, some money, I believe $12 million has been put up. But let's hope there is some real justice, and we can see America moving ahead and getting ahead of what has been a truly awful 2020.
Absolutely. I'll see you next week, George.
Natalie Sady on The Informer.